Yes, Council.
We are here to file a petition, and indeed we have filed a petition challenging the general court martial as re-established by Parliament and the Seventh government. The petitioners are Dr Kizza Besigye and the Obed Utare. Yesterday, actually in the course of last week, we took the petition to Zira, and of course we have been pursuing the same for some time. Yesterday they signed the affidavit, and then the same was commissioned by Justice of Peace, and today we have filed the petition. A number of grounds have been highlighted in this petition. One, the overthrow of the Constitution by Parliament and the Seventh government to re-enact a bill or an act of Parliament which had been nullified by the Supreme Court. So of course unconstitutional to re-enact a law in almost the same terms as the one which was nullified by the Constitutional Court. Almost all the provisions that had been nullified by the Constitutional Court were re-enacted, reincarnated by the Constitutional Court, rather by Parliament, and subsequently assented to by General Kaguta Museveni. When you look at the old text of the law, which was nullified by the Supreme Court, as against the new one, materially they are the same, both in spirit and the letter. And it offends Article 92 of the Constitution and other provisions of the Constitution. So that is one ground. The other one is the way Parliament stampeded the members to pass this bill, to pass the law. The whole of Parliament was stampeded. They purported to suspend the rules of procedure. There was no room for debate. Even the committee did the shoulder work, because when it was first presented before Parliament for the first reading by the Honorable both, and it was committed to the committee, took about two to 3 days reported to process the same, and they never invited public opinion on the same, including the political parties and the aggrieved individuals, because the people who ought to have appeared before that committee were key, a number of them were not summoned. Key people who were meant to appear before the committee were not given the opportunity, including Dr Kizza Besigye and Obed Utare, because they have gone through hell in all these processes before the general court. They have stories to tell, and they had a lot to recount before courts of law, and they are the most suited to appear before either Parliament or court to experience or to recount whatever, rather to recount the experiences they went through and how horrible that law is. Unfortunately, the committee did not afford them that opportunity. Again, even on the floor of Parliament, there was no debate at all. It was more or less like a hit and run process. The way the Speaker circumvented the rules of procedure, suspended some, stampeded the Parliament, and they passed it just in a mob manner is one of the issues we have raised in this process. The other things, apart from the specific provisions, we are still challenging the trial of civilians before the general court. They reincarnated that, re-enacted that under two circumstances. That if you are found in possession of a weapon which is ordinarily a monopoly of the UPDF, even if you are not a serving military officer, you are subject to military law. Two, if you are alleged to have committed an offense in concert with the serving military officer as an accomplice, you can also be court-martialed. Yet this was also declared invalid. If you looked at the decision of the Supreme Court and the decision that was delivered on the 31st day of January 2025, it was clear that the people were subject to military law and the serving military officers. And this General Court Martial could only serve as a disciplinary committee of serving military officers. That if you wanted to have civilians dragged before this unit, then make it a division of the High Court. The High Court is here. We have the criminal division here. Probably they would have created, according to the structural interdicts given in that particular decision, probably they should have created a separate unit or department or division of the High Court to deal with those matters. They didn't do so. So instead brought it back the same terms as it were before. The other ground is about, again, conflict of interest now. The members who are sitting on this tribunal, the General Court Martial, are serving military officers. For your information, the person leading it is Brigadier General Tukachungurwa. Others are colonels, colonels. So now you ask yourself, if you look at the decision of the Supreme Court, they said the oath these officers take is to pay allegiance to the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. So if their oath is not allegiance to the law, it's not to uphold the law, to uphold the Constitution, but to pay allegiance to the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. And they have to take orders from the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, and is the one now to direct them on what to do. So there is a conflict of interest there. So if you are to uphold the law, and the oath you have taken is a different one, then how are you going to serve the interests of justice? So they are not going, these members, and we are challenging the oath they took. Kachungurwa and his colleagues have been sworn in, and they are about to start business. But the oath they took is to pay allegiance to General Kaguta Museveni as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, but not to pay allegiance to the Constitution or to uphold the Constitution and the law. And that is a conflict of interest which cannot serve the interest of justice. And we are insisting that Tukachungurwa and his team should not be allowed to try civilians. Tukachungurwa and team can only serve as members of a disciplinary committee of the UPDF. So the prayers we are seeking, number one, we would like the Constitutional Court to pronounce itself on the legality of the Impandi law, that is the UPDF Act, which has been re-enacted following a decision of the Supreme Court that had nullified particular provision. So we want this one also to be nullified or declared the nullity by the Constitutional Court. Two, we would like court to stop Brigadier General Tukachungurwa and those colonels and all those members of the tribunal, to stop them from proceeding with matters relating to civilians. So trying civilians who have nothing to do with the UPDF, non-serving officers of the army, so they don't fall within the jurisdiction of that particular court. Three, we want the court also to pronounce in uncertain, no, we want the court to pronounce itself in uncertain terms that Brigadier Tukachungurwa and his camp are not seized with competence to handle matters of that nature, of that magnitude. Even if they involve military officers, say for example, to handle matters where the sentence is death, they have no capacity and competence to condemn particular person to death, Brigadier Kachungura and those other members, Brigadier General, they don't have that competence to do so, even if they are serving military officers. Because you need to have specialized training. Yes, they may claim that they are lawyers, but you need to have specialized training, and you must have certain qualities to be able to deal with the same. Like a judicial officers, it's not that when you are appointed a judicial officer here, straight away you go and handle cases of murder. No, they get training, they undergo a lot of processes, tutoring, mentorship, and so on and so forth. Induction, but these ones, they were just sworn in recently, and we are made to understand that very soon they are about to start handling the cases. Finally, yes, we are doing this. First of all, we ought to have filed it some time back. Unfortunately, we have been having a hectic season. It was not possible. But two, and most importantly, yes, the information we have received, Brigadier General Kachungura and team are gearing up now to begin the process, to begin the hearing of these matters. And many people are still languishing in Busira Bay. There are those whose files were not transferred to the civilian courts. Now they just want to take them back to the general court martial. They are many. And we have also had maneuvers being made, even files that had earlier on been transferred to the general court, to the civilian courts. They want to switch them back to the general court martial. Even those that had been brought this way, now that General Kachunguru and the team have been sworn in, they want those files taken that side. 3, we have a number of our colleagues who have not appeared before courts of law, like Sam Mugumia and others, including those who have been elected during this election season and in the aftermath of elections. The reports we are getting, they are about to stop the practice of bringing them to civilian courts and take them to the general court martial as the practice was before. So it's the reason now we have to act in earnest and aggressively to stop